Hello everyone, welcome back to The Addicted Bookworm, where my addiction is all over the internet. On this channel I do library book hauls, book reviews, both digital and physical, audiobooks, and so much more. So I was on my phone today, it's still today, and I noticed something that was pretty interesting, and I kind of want to talk about it, but first of all I want to say, happy 1600th video. I can't believe I have done that many videos. I know some people will post like only a couple times a year and things like that, but I'm the kind of person that does not believe in just sitting around and doing something a couple times a year. I actually want to engage with people and to kind of talk about things that I think are important. And as somebody who is an author as well as a reader, and just somebody that remembers the good old days, I just feel like I have a lot to talk about. So in this video, I am going to be talking about performative reading and why this goes right into why I am no longer on TikTok. Because to me, TikTok was all about performative reading. It was all about reading for social media clout, reading to appear that you are far more intelligent. Yeah, I know. So I was on there, and they were talking about the rise of performative reading in the age of social media. And it kind of, I read the article and I was like, yeah, I totally get it. I totally understand where this is coming from. And so as somebody who is a firm believer in basically in not being a performative reader, who actually sits down and reads books, not just skims them or complains about how many words are on a page, I really see social media as this performative backyard, performative thing. And it's really kind of weird as somebody who has read for a very long time. Now, I'm going to stop there and say this. I am not big on reading classical literature, unless it's like Dracula or Frankenstein or something like that. But I also understand why these classics are important. They're important for many different reasons. But when you have people that take reading and turn it into a performance, that's when it becomes a problem. And, there's going to be people that are going to constantly defend this and say, oh, but at least they're reading. But are they understanding what they're reading? So, I actually have an article here on BookBay. I think that's the name of it. Bookish Bay. You're going to see me with glasses on, so I know it'll be shocking. Alright. Okay. Alright, so this is from this year. From this month. Alright, so it says here, performative reading in the age of social media, how the public display of reading has undermined the transformative power of books. So, there's key takeaways from this. So it says here, the first takeaway is performative reading refers to the growing tendency to read not for personal transformation, but for public display. And so I'm going to take each point and talk about it, because I like this kind of stuff. I like it when people do these article takeaways and kind of gives me something to sink what's left of my teeth into it. So the first point that is made is absolutely correct. So every time that you go on BookTok or Bookstagram, Bookstagram does it too, but not on the level that I've seen it on BookTok, on Threads, on Facebook. I mean, I have a group on Facebook that is just for people to post book reviews. They can write their book reviews out, or they can do a video about their book reviews. um, on X. Now, I do sometimes post book reviews on X, but not all the time. I do post book reviews on Facebook once a day. So, like in about an hour or so, I'll post another book review. What else? Whatever. I mean, like Tome next week is releasing their app for what I've got. Android. But anyways, and Tome is supposed to be the answer to Book Talk, which I am a member of Tome, but I don't post anything on it because the app was not available for me to download, because I didn't have an app. I didn't have an iPhone. So if you go and talk to anyone about a book that they post on Book Talk and say, okay, who's your favorite character in the book, and they'll give a character name. Okay, what did you like about that character? What was, did she go through any challenges, as a character? What was her strengths and her weaknesses as a character? And as for me, on my own channel, I really am working on kind of talking about the characters and what I liked about them, what I didn't like about them, things like that. Because I think that is important. I don't do performative reading. But the first takeaway that you get from it, definitely on there, is that people don't read books to get any kind of escapism. They read the books for the things that are in it that they personally like. I should know I was like them one time. I remember being 17 and reading romance novels only for the sex scenes. Yeah. So this social media, second point, social media platforms reward visible engagement, encouraging curated shelves, aestheticized bookshelves. Sorry, it's not my teeth, it's me. Social media platforms reward visible engagement, encouraging curated selfies and aesthetic bookshelves, and the strategic sharing of literary quotes. Okay. Literary quotes, as far as I know, is quotes that have jumped out at you. Not anything that stirs the soul. So yes, Book Talk is really famous for it. Facebook is doing it. Instagram is doing it. X is doing it, I believe. Unless you're talking about the racist AI granny. I heard about that on the internet. I was like, what? Anyways, yeah. They literally will show off their bookshelves full of aesthetically pleasing books. And sprayed edges is not helping matters at all. Sprayed edges have taken the beauty and specialness of books and turned it into something that, if it doesn't have a sprayed edge on it, I do not get it. That's just how it is. You have selfies. Like I will do I don't do a selfie. I put the book up against something and I take a picture of it. Yep, this is the book I've just read. It's annoying It doesn't tell you anything about the book. They don't go into details about the book at all. They don't tell you what the book's about, or barely they tell you what the book's about. So yeah, that's what they do, and it's freaking stupid. But at least it's not as bad as that one guy. That one guy. Oh no. Readers become curators of cultural capital where books signal values and identity more than they shape interior life. Yeah. So, one of the big issues that I have with it is that, I gotta change my settings on because this is getting really annoying, is that, as it says, yeah, basically, if you have a large bookshelf of books, people think that you're educated, or you're educated, or you're smart, or whatever. And that definitely is not always the case. It is not always the case at all in these videos. And it is something that annoys me to no end, next to my phone trying to turn off or trying to go dark. It's a performance, and it annoys me to no end about how performative these people are. So yeah, but I will once again say better than some of these people on TikTok. Like I said, I'm going to go on my settings when this is done. This shift risks displacing slow, private, transformative reading with forms of consumption that demand speed, shareability, and visual polish. Transformative reading, quiet, unmarketed, and gradual, had become harder to sustain in culture driven by metrics. Alright, so, if you guys don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to my settings because I really am getting tired of this constantly, doing this. So, here in a second here. Okay, there we go. That should fix it. Okay. So, yeah. So, what that means is that anytime that you are a person who believes in taking a book and dissecting it and analyzing every word, every sentence, every paragraph, on and on and on, you're not going to get the kind of viewership as you would other people. So, for example, I did a little thing on Instagram where I gave a 44-second video about what I was doing. I was telling them that I am writing a fantasy book. It's a 7-book series. It is a retelling. It's a kind of retelling of Merlin and his adventures, except Merlin is a girl. And I got probably about 24 views on that video, which was good. So I'm kind of hoping 24 views equals 24 people that will give me an honest review. But yeah, it is something that I had to do. I had to do that short form video. But one of the problems that we have with this kind of thing, where they don't go into details about the book, they don't tell you what the book is about. If you go on TikTok and you say, hey, by the way, what was the book about? What was the book about? They will not have an answer. Hence why I'm taking all my readings slowly. Yeah. Um, Key difference between the two modes lie in intent and posture. Performative reading emphasizes visibility, alignment, and aesthetic. Transformative reading privileges introspective delay and subtle change. Well, I kind of didn't get that. I got the first part, but not the second part. But I think, like, with a good book, it has the power to make you live in some kind of moment, helps you reflect about things, put things in more perspective than it would anything else. Performative reading is all about views, money, and nothing else. The challenge is not to reject performative reading outright, but to preserve space for unseen engagement. The unseen reader, the one who reads and reflects without spectacle, remains essential, especially in a world that increasingly demands social engagement. Okay, I'm going to agree with that wholeheartedly. I really am. The past few years have seen an uncanny shift in how we talk about reading, not in the sense of literacy or genre performance, but in the cultural function of reading itself. A term has emerged and re-emerged with quite insistent performative reading. It describes a phenomenon that feels both new and familiar, alarming and inevitable. Performative reading refers to a mode of reading that is less about absorption, reflection, or interior transformation, and more about display, signaling, and audience awareness. Books are not just read, they are staged. One reads not solely for what the book imparts, but also what it implies about the reader. The shift has led to broader questions. How do we arrive at a place where the act of reading can be performative in the first place? What is lost when reading veers away from being transformative? Okay. So, what we lose when we talk about performative reading, when we gear away from books that are meant to challenge us as readers, is we lose what made books so political in the first place. So, just because a book has this, and this, and this in it, does not mean that it is transformative. It doesn't mean that it's up there with books that were attacked because they made you think, because they made you ask questions that you did not want an answer to. Nowadays, when it comes to books, if they don't check certain kinds of boxes, they're not worth your time. Even books that are designed to make you think and to make you reflect and all this, if they don't have certain things in them, they're not worth your time. And that is the thing that I'm really not liking about modern day literature as a whole, is especially in books that are designed to make you think and make you think critically, books that check certain kinds of boxes are more important than books that are designed to make you think or make you feel a certain way, but not in a way that overall becomes violent. One of the most prime example of a book that had a profound effect on New York history as well as American history is The Jungle. And The Jungle is about the shit that was going on with poor people, poor individuals. So, for example, is back in the late 1800s, you had these very rich men that owned tenements. And they would cram as many people as they could in there. This is why New York is very famous for their small apartments. It goes all the way back to the tenement age, the tenement period. And he took photos of the conditions that poor people were going through. And it shocked the American collective. That was a transformative book. You can read it, because I do plan on to read it. You can read it and you can get a very good idea of what was going on in New York in the late 1800s. So yeah. Um, all right. The performative definition applied to reading. The word performative carries a particular weight in both philosophy and everyday usage. In its original theoretical framing, particularly in the work of J.L. Austin and Judith Butler, the term described utterances or actions that do not simply describe a state of affairs but enact it. Saying I do in a wedding ceremony doesn't describe a marriage. It constitutes it. Similarly, gender in Butler's use becomes a matter of performance. One becomes a certain identity by enacting it repeatedly in certain cultural, legible ways. In this light, performative reading isn't just the act of reading with an audience in mind. It is reading as an assertion of self. The book one chooses, the passage one highlights, the selfies one posts. They are all performative gestures. They help construct a public-facing persona, intellectually engaged, politically aware, emotionally perceptive. Sorry, my teeth are going away. The book becomes a prop in a drama about identity. Okay. So, one of the biggest examples of how books can make up the identity of the person reading it, is when you go and you're a woman and all you're reading is romantasy, smut, all that type of stuff. People, especially other women that may not like what you like, and men, and always men, they are going to have this view of you and your persona. They're going to go, you don't read anything intelligent. You don't read anything that makes you think. All this. So, you're performing for an audience, and you make up your whole persona about that particular thing. And that is all that matters to you. So you're performing for an audience. You're performing like a circus bear on a ball, and they don't see a person enjoying books. They're seeing the circus bear on the ball, and that's what they're seeing, and that's what I see. The reason why performative reading is especially seductive now in a culture fractured by ideological binaries and anxious about authenticity, the books we read become shorthand for who we are. To be seen reading James Baldwin, Bell Books, or Toni Morrison is not only a claim about literary taste, it is also a moral alignment. To read Georges and Rachel Cusk signals... Okay, Rachel, if I mispronounced your last name, I am truly sorry. Signals an aesthetic disposition, a personality even. One doesn't merely read these writers, one aligns with them, absorbs their postures, and projects that affiliation outward. This is not inherently shallow. People have always turned to literature to shape themselves. What difference now is the stage. The transformation is no longer presumed to happen inside over time. It must be basically immediate. Compressed into a caption announced in the margins of a post. The current resurgence of performative reading is inexcusably from the infrastructure of social media. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube have configured how reading is witnessed. The phenomenon of book talk and bookstagram, for instance, has made it possible, almost expected, for readers to document their literary habits. What was once solitary now invites feedback loops, likes, shares, reactions, and comments. Alright. I am going to definitely agree with that. I'm definitely going to agree with that. But for me on Facebook, I post video reviews of my books, not to show my literary taste, but to show how much I've enjoyed the books. I like the idea of doing book reviews. I love the idea of putting myself out there and everything. And also, what I've also noticed is that if you don't like certain authors, if you don't read certain kinds of books, people have this very weird view about you, which is like wholeheartedly inappropriate. And so if you go and just read a book because you enjoy it and they find out, oh yes, it's a person of color, oh yeah, you're awakened. And it's like, no, I just enjoyed the book. Yeah. Not very odd for people to do that. To be clear, performative reading existed long before the algorithm. Think of salon culture, public readings, even marginally in shared literary copies. What has changed is the scale and speed. One can now perform the act of reading across a global audience within seconds. Social platforms are not only enable performance, they incentivize it. Algorithms reward immediately, visually polished, and something. Okay. Reading becomes part of a broader economy of visibility, where personal reflections must be translated into shareable values. The visual economy of social media privileges the photographic over the introspective. A worn, antedated copy of The Brothers Something might hold more private meaning, but in a pristine hardcover or a buzzy new release with an aesthetically arranged cappuccino beside it offers more digital capital. Reading becomes not a private act of meaning making, it's but a public act of image making. Yeah. Oh yeah. That definitely is it. If you go and look at some videos, because I was actually watching this one video on YouTube about this lady. She was basically sharing some TikToks and stuff, and basically the belief was that if you are in a reading slump or whatever, that instead of stepping away from the performative circus, going back to the bear on the ball, that you just need to buy books. Because if you don't buy books, you're never going to get out of your reading slump. Yeah. It's stupid. But it seems like to me that it has gotten to the point where you can't just step away from social media and maybe decide, oh, okay, I'm gonna put one or two books on my Kindle or on my Nook because I'm going on a cruise ship and I want to have something to read. Which, by the way, that's not a bad idea. They are like, no, you need to buy 50, 60 books to get out of your reading slump, and, and that's just like, no, I don't need to do that. But yeah, that's how it is. The bookshelf as performance stages. The bookshelf has emerged as one of the most symbolic backgrounds of this shift. Once a practical storage solution is now often curated with the same intentionality as a gallery. Certain titles are placed outward facing, spines are arranged not for ease of retrieval, but for aesthetic coherence. Sometimes books are color-coded to match interior design. This visual coding is not without meaning. During the pandemic's early months, video calls frequently featured bookcase backdrops where one's reading choices became part of a professional persona. Politicians, influencers, and journalists curated visible libraries for aesthetic and ideological effects. Certain titles were placed forward, others omitted. Even disarray could be carefully staged to suggest spontaneity or intellectual ferment. None of this is trivial, as it signals a shift in reading cultural position from a meditative act to a lifestyle indicator. When books are filtered through trends, aesthetic, and algorithms, their functions begin to tilt. They begin to resemble fashion more than inquiry. So yes, it is a this is a very, very long article. Very long article. um so yeah. So I'm at 30 minutes here. Alright, so one things that I did on Instagram was I showed off my little miniature was it horror thriller, not horror thriller, sorry, that's the other one. My fantasy section, and these were books that I personally enjoyed above all others. I'm not saying that my other fantasy books that I have are not good. They are, but these are my favorites. And I got no response from it. Obviously, they didn't like the idea that 100% of the books that I have were white authors. I don't really care. I don't care. I just showed it off because I was happy. But yeah, so you have fantasy readers that display their large bookshelves full of like fantasy books. You have some that just show off their bookshelves when they move in because, hey, I'm in my new place, my bookshelves are up. But I think that for a lot of people, if they don't have the bookshelves in the background, somebody might forget they're a reader. Might forget they're a reader. I don't, when I do my little like Facebook videos for my group, I don't have in the background just so that I can show off I'm a reader. I happen to be in the room. The performative reader as curator. In this ecosystem, the reader becomes less a student and more a curator. The role involves taste, positioning, and presentation. Certain books are read not for their arguments, but for their shareability. Quotations are pulled not because they provoke thought, but because they're good on a screen. Marginalia, once scribbled for personal understanding, are now often translated into stylized content. As reading becomes an act of display, the reader takes on a new role, that of curator, no longer merely a participant in the conversation with the text. The reader becomes a manager of the material. Reading becomes less about engagement with difficulty and more about assembling a consumable identity. And that is something that I really, really don't like. Like, every time that they rearrange their freaking shelves, all you do is seeing, like, oh, I need a book like this and like this. I'm like, okay, I turn you off because I'm not into that. I definitely am not. My fantasy bookshelf is not aesthetically pleasing by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm pretty sure there are plenty of people that are going to be like, but you gotta be like this, and you gotta be like this. No. No. Performative versus transformative. Okay, unlike performative speech in the technical sense, performative reading does not necessarily bring about transformation. It often serves as a kind of social semaphore. The book becomes a flag planted in the soil of one's digital or interpersonal identity. The selection, framing, and display of the book becomes the message. It would be lazy to claim that all public reading is insincere. One can read both performatively and intentively. However, the balance between display and interiority has undeniably shifted. When reading becomes a means to an aesthetic and affirmation, relevance, and visibility, it risks flattening the book into a mere token of enlightenment. Its substance becomes secondary to its optics. Okay, so I don't understand that stuff. I don't. So I'm going to end it. I'm not going to continue on with the article because it's pretty long. But I do agree with what I've read. And the thing about it is that when you care more about image than about what authors have spent their time and energy to actually producing, it becomes something very scary. So, for example, some people will say that romantasy is conservative Christian propaganda. Some will say that. And you can go and say that, but it's not going to erase the fact that millions of women love them. You can go and you can read horror and people come across as, oh, yep, you're unhinged or whatever. So, going back to the book, The Jungle, which transformed the face of everything, it really shows how powerful a very well written book is, how it can transform people's lives. It can make a difference in people's lives. Uncle Tom's Cabin was another book that had explosive effect. And that's how really good books can transform and shape people's thinking, their values, what they think is important, and on and on. Now, even though romantasy books are not high quality books, a lot of them are not even great books, women in general who may not have picked up a book at all pick up these books and read them because they give them some kind of joy. And sometimes they'll set up a YouTube channel. Every now and then you'll see them, which is not bad at all. Some people take off real quickly, like that one guy that I follow on YouTube. He's very nice, or he appears to be very nice. But I think that why articles like this come out, I think it's because society as a whole, they know how powerful books are. They know that the reason that books are political is because of books that have come out that have changed how people view the world, how they view other people, how this and how that. You have photos that have done the same thing and everything. So it is important to understand that as much as we do not like performative reading, and I can't stand performative reading at all, that unfortunately is here to stay. And as much as we would like to criticize these women who swoon over shadow daddies, I've gotten to the point in it is that just let them do what they want to do. Just let them do what they want to do. Anyways, that is my video for today. Well, actually, not really for today. Well, actually, it is for today because this is the last video I'm uploading for tonight. I will, of course, actually, let me take that back. I'll upload that one other video. Okay, so I will see you guys around next time. Be well.